I'll say a little about myself, and I'll spend the great deal of our time talking about the camera systems. But Eric Peterson is my name. I'm the training and technical specialist for Hasselblad. I've been an employee of Hasselblad for the last 12 years. If any of you have worked with the flex type scanners or have called out tech desks from the East Coast, maybe we've spoken to one another, because I've worked in that capacity in a number of different technical capacities over the last 12 years. One of the things that I've had the benefit of is seeing the evolution of the H system from its introduction in 2001 with the H1 camera body until now to 2013 with the H5D. And so I know each of those products very well. If we need to talk about some of the differences and comparisons between them, we can do so. So I'm glad to be here to be able to share this wonderful camera system with you. The H5D is the 6th generation of the Hasselblad integrated camera system. What do I mean when I'm talking about integrated? Well, basically think of it not as in regards to the brand, but as your DSLR is constructed, that you're not taking components of it, using it with other camera systems. It's an integrated system from the lens to the body, the viewfinder, and digital magazine. They all have their own data bus, so they're able to communicate with one another fully. And in fact, we took a hit in the industry when we created the integrated system with the H1D, because several people were saying we were locking them out from our system. But our first obligation was to give the advantages of this great system to Hasselblad owners. And so since it's an integrated system and that the lens can communicate all the way to the digital back, we were able to create a number of different photographic advantages with the product that would not have been possible if it was not an integrated system. So that criticism, I think, was unfair because our first obligation was to Hasselblad owners. In addition to that, we did provide the industry with digital backs. We had the express backs with the turn of the 2000s, and we also later came with CF digital backs that could be used on third-party camera systems. So the integration of this system, I think you will find quite impressive. And now I'm going to go through a slide presentation to give you the details about the latest generation of the integrated camera system, the H5D. So the slide presentation is entitled the H5D Explained. Of course, here are some photographs of the H5D, and you may note that the H5D above its predecessors is a little stronger in regards to its own branding of the Hasselblad camera system, noting the Hasselblad name on the front of the viewfinder and the actual model on the left side of the camera, here, your right side in viewing it. And as I mentioned, this is the 6th generation of the integrated system. So we've had H1D, H2D, H3D, an H3D2, and an H4D, and now the H5D. The only differences between the H3D and the H3D2 was the size of the viewfinder and the technology that was used with the viewfinder of that camera system. Excuse me, the digital display of that camera system. The camera systems that we have available with the H5D line is the H5D40, the H5D50, and the H5D60. We also have some multi-shot camera systems, the H5D50MS and the H5D200MS. You may note that we do not have a 31 megapixel. Of course, with the H4D, we offer the 31 megapixel also. And you see here we have an asterisk over the 50. The 50 is the foundation or the sensor size for the H5D multi-shot camera systems. The 50 and 200 both use the same size sensor. And we'll talk about the multi-shot camera systems a bit more to differentiate between the 50 and the 200 multi-shot systems. The H5D 40 and 50 uses the Kodak TrueSense sensor. One, of course, is a 40 megapixel and the other is a 50 megapixel, but each use a 6 micron pixel. So the differences between them is the size of the sensor array. The sensor array on the 40 is 33 by 44 millimeters, and the 50 is 37 by 49, give or take a decimal or so. The H5D 60 uses the DALSA sensor. Of course, there's a 60 megapixel sensor, and you're talking about 40 by 53 millimeters in regards to the sensor array size. It also uses a 6 micron pixel. Quite often I'm asked, why did we change to DALSA on the 60 megapixel sensor? The only reason we really changed it really had nothing to do with Kodak's business as people know it today, and that Kodak has basically gone away in regards to producing film and digital camera systems. The only reason we changed to the DALSA sensor was because at that particular time, Kodak could not offer a 60 megapixel sensor when we wanted to bring the product to market. Here we have a illustration of some micro lenses. On the H5D 40, we have micro lenses over the 6 micron pixels. And the reason we have those micro lenses is to bring more light into the well of the pixels, and for a practical point, it gives us one more stop in regards to our ISO range. The ISO range on the H5D 40 is 100 to 1600. On the H5D 50 and 60, the ISO range is from 50 to 800. And of course, you get a smaller file size with the H5D 40. On the H5D 60 here, you'll see that's a 6:4:5 format. And of course, all of the Hasselblad integrated camera systems from the H1D all the way up to the H5D have been a 6:4:5 format. And of course, that alarmed some people in the industry because, of course, the Hasselblad V system was a 2¼ format. It was a square format. And of course, we all know the advantages of being able to have a square format to be able to turn the camera from portrait to landscape orientation and to be able to compose your image. But due to the new design and the sensor manufacturers, the actual frame is a 6:4:5 format. The lens factor on the H5D 60 is 1:1. So what you see is what you get without any lens factor. And on the HCD lenses, we have a slight crop at the edges of the actual image. The reason for that is that the HCD lenses were made for the 39 megapixel sensors. They were optimized for those sensor sizes, and until we actually redesign those lenses, we'll have a slight crop. But in most cases, you'll see that when you capture with the H5D 60 that you'll use the entire file. Basically, it's just showing a greater fall off at the edges of the image. But that brings up a question. We have HC lenses and HCD lenses. And we'll talk about the lenses in full, but the difference is the D designates that particular lens as just strictly being for digital. When we made the H1, H2, H2F, each of those camera systems allowed you to put film backs onto them. So with those particular camera systems, you cannot use the HCD lenses because they're digital only. And the only digital lenses that we have is the 24 millimeter, the 28 millimeter, the 35 to 90 zoom lens. Those are the HCD lenses that are part of our lens kit. We have a new double resolution display. It's basically 3 inches, but it's 460 by 320 in regards to the actual pixels. It uses a thin film transistor technology, which allows you to look at the image on the display of the camera system in daylight. It also requires less power than the former technology, which was the OLED display, which required additional power. So not only does the resolution allow you to do a digital focus check directly on the display of the camera system, but it also is a power saving mode when using the TFT technology. So we have proven and well-received sensors, speed, sensitivity, resolution, and the marketing people says great images, and I agree with them. Okay, so here's the new H5D here. Of course, you'll note the differences in color from the H4D, and it may not be as present with the lights low here, but it has the new harmonizing colors here. And people think it's quite appealing, but when you touch the camera system, you'll see that the new design is also more ergonomically appealing than the previous versions. But what really makes this camera system is the new features. If you look at the top here, it has a new eye cup. It also has updated grip display, meaning that the backlighting of the LED of the grip is better. The size of the characters in the grip are larger, and on top of the grip here we actually have the actual functions placed properly this time for handheld photography, meaning the actual functions of the buttons on the grip are in front of the button as opposed to being behind the button as it is on the H4D. And I'll show you a comparison once we hold both camera systems. We also have a new compact flash door. We mentioned that the H5D is better weather sealed than its predecessors. And that's the result of taking the camera extensively in the field doing our Hasselblad excursions. And so right from the compact flash door, it's better dust sealed. And each of the modules, the viewfinder, the camera body, the digital back to the body itself, are all better weather sealed than the previous versions. We also have a new battery grip, which is backwards compatible. So if you have an H1D, H2D, H3D, H3D2, or H4D, you can use the current battery grip on those particular camera systems with a firmware update. The advantage is that you're going to double your battery duration because the H5D has all new electronics and required twice the power than the H4D. We have a 29 milliamp battery on this particular camera, and so you can use it backwards. Additionally, we have True Focus 2. We'll talk a great deal about True Focus. True Focus is a technology that was introduced in the camera system at the H4D level. So we'll talk about the True Focus and what True Focus 2 is. Okay. Some of the other features is we have a new sensor lock on the body of the camera system, and that sounds like something that, you know, wouldn't be of much interest, but for anyone taking the camera out into the field, this is a very significant improvement. Previously, whenever you wanted to get to the digital back, and at times when you take a camera system in the field or even in the studio, you want to get to the digital back to be able to clean the sensor. Well, to get to it on the H4D and earlier camera systems, you had to remove the viewfinder to get to it. And so once you do that, you basically expose everything but the lenses to the elements. Well, with the H5D, we have the ability now to remove the digital back simply by pressing in the new sensor lock, and there's a button on the top of the digital back, and now we're only exposing the sensor to the elements which we've taken off to possibly clean in the situation. Okay. We mentioned that the camera has all new electronics, and the camera system has a new right-angle firewire cable. Not only does it have a right-angled firewire cable, which in itself is an improvement, but the actual firewire door has a trap door to protect the cameras from dust. And it also allows you to place the right angle firewire into the camera, and it locks into place. So much so that you can actually suspend the camera system from it. I was a wide receiver when I was a young person, so I never dropped a pass. So I definitely will not drop a $30,000 camera system. Okay. As we mentioned, we have the new double resolution display on the back. It's a 24-bit display, but even more importantly, we have the ability to do immediate focus confirmation now, which simply means that we can zoom into the image at selected points at 100%, probe the image with a combination of user buttons and scroll wheels on the camera. We can probe the entire composition of the image on the back and check it for focusing. The improved ergonomics here, we'll be able to see once we compare the two camera systems, but we'll see that we've eliminated a couple of buttons and added multiple functions to many of the buttons that you see on the back, including the P1 and P2 button. The P1 and P2 button gives us quick access to the custom options of the camera system. The camera has 34 custom options and be configured in over 120 different ways, but here we can get quick access to them without having to go through the menu set. So that's a new feature also. Now, I talked about some of the advantages of the integration of the system, but the integration of the camera system, I think, is only exceeded when the camera is tethered to the software. The Focus software integration is quite incredible. It allows us to do things like live video. It allows us to do critical focusing, all from the software without touching the camera system. And of course, the benefit to that is, one, with the live video, we can correct our composition before capturing, and with the critical focusing, we're able to control the camera from the software in intervals smaller than you can physically control the focus ring of the camera itself. So we'll be able to show some of that when we go hands-on also. And the Focus software itself is a free download from our website. Since the introduction of Focus, we've offered it free, and when we tell you that it's free, that doesn't mean that it's cheap. In regards to its operation, it's very effective. I think if you use any of the other image processing tools or raw converters in the industry, you'll find that it's par to them. And I think in using the Hasselblad camera system, it will give you advantages that you cannot get even with third-party products, even such as Lightroom, in regards to taking advantage of the proprietary data that's captured by the Hasselblad camera system. So if you haven't used it, feel free to download it. I have copies of it with me. I have a copy of it here today, so if any of you have a flash drive or any other type of storage device, I'll be more than happy to give you a copy of it, as well as hopefully you brought something to keep some of the data that you're going to capture here this afternoon. So by a show of hands, how many people have compact flash cards with them or drives? So we have one. Okay. Well, this may be a good time to find a real cheap flash drive or something to store some images to, but we're definitely going to allow you to keep anything that we capture here. I brought the lighting just to be able to give us some lighting, you know, to take photographs of each other and really experience the quality of the camera system. Okay. This is just a look at the interface once we entered into live video, showing us being able to do critical focusing with the software itself. One of the other things that we're able to do now is that we have a camera configurator inside of the software. The camera itself, you can configure it or create profiles, and it gives you the ability to store 4 spare profiles inside of the camera system. And the advantage of that is that it allows you to move between different types of photography quite rapidly, or the camera can be used by multiple photographers. So photographer A, photographer B can use their own setup profile, and just with the click of a button and selecting that profile, you can move between the photographers and different types of photography. So here is just showing the actual default and the spare profile settings here. So this is just a image that was taken by a Hasselblad photographer, Derek Jackson. Of course, this is, what type of animal is this? It's a fox. Man, I'm a city boy. I was about to call it a cat, but no, a cat's a fox. Well, Derek took this image of this fox with a 300 millimeter lens with the 1.7 converter. Then he took this landscape image. And so basically, you'll see his settings here that he set up in the profile. And so what we're really trying to say is that this literally makes the camera operate as if it's two camera systems. And so it's something that if you're working in a studio environment that you really want to make use of, particularly for different types of photography and photographers. Okay, true focus. Let's talk about true focus here. True focus 2. True focus is a technology that was introduced with the H5D. This is an H5D. This one here actually is the 200 H5D, and you'll see that it has this piezo module here that allows it to control movement at the sensor level, but we'll talk about that. But the true focus technology was introduced in the H5D. The camera itself has a yaw rate sensor in it, and that sensor allows it to detect all of its movement. And in combination with something known as the position lock, it's able to detect movement and store that movement temporarily for focus purposing or for recomposing your image. So what the true focus technology does is that it allows you to lock your initial focus point and then to recompose the camera system for capture. So let's talk a little bit about how that happens. Here's an image of a model here, and quite often when we're taking an image of a person, of course, we're focusing at the eye level. And so I'm going to zoom in a little here, and we'll see the catch light in the pupil of the model here, and looks pretty sharp to you? Somewhat? Not too sharp?
Yeah, the middle of the eye, like into the corner, is a little softer.
Okay, not sharp enough for a Hasselblad, right?
Right.
Okay.
$30,000.
Okay. How about that one? A little better. The only difference between the two is simply using the true focus technology. And of course, whenever you're focusing a camera system and then you recompose it, in this particular instance, when you're focusing right at the eye level, you're going to naturally tilt the camera to reduce the overhead, of course. And so once you focus on the eyes and then recompose the camera, what happens to your focus? It normally falls behind the eye. The crow's feet is sharper than the pupil of the eye to catch light in the eye. Well, with the true focus technology, it'll basically correct for that phenomenon by basically measuring the camera to subject distance on one plane and measuring the camera to subject distance on the second plane, and it creates a delta between the two and makes a slight adjustment in milliseconds just before capture. So that's how it works, and let's look a little how it behaves here. We're looking at a wide angle lens, a 28 millimeter lens here at about a meter away or 3 feet away here, and we'll see here at f4 and f8 you have plenty depth of field. So you can tilt, swing, or whatever you would like to do, and everything's going to still remain in focus. But let's change that situation here. Once we recompose, of course, we still have enough depth of field to keep the subject in focus. And if we move back 3 meters, basically about 10 feet or more, we'll see that it's negligible. There's no reason for us to really use true focus in this case because we have enough depth of field to cover the subject. But that situation changes drastically if you change the focal length to about an 80 and move up about 3 feet. And you'll see right now we're in focus right at the eye level, but all it takes is just a little movement for it to fall behind the eye. So in that particular case, just explaining why you would use true focus and when you would use it is something that you use consciously. If you're doing close-up photography, you'll see with a 28 here at 1 meter, there's a strong reason for using it. And if you're about 10 feet away, it's a moderate. But if you're using a longer focal length, there's really not really a reason to use it. But I tell you, if any of you do portrait photography, this will be a great tool to you to see you maintain your focus and create the composition that you want after recomposing. And we'll demonstrate it with each other here. So shorter focal lengths, shallow depth of field, and closer distances are great reasons for using this technology. And of course here, when we're using it, the technique is keeping the camera on this axis, not moving from left to right or to or from the subject matter, because then it would have to have the ability to make other calculations. So what we really want to do, and I moved a little too fast here, is to keep the camera, when using it, on this axis. This is what you're doing instead of left to right or to or from. No, we're really the challenge is when you're going to be doing handheld photography, or even if you're using a tripod, if you recompose, you still have the same problem. So here, if you use the proper technique and the true focus technology, you won't have to worry about that, even in doing handheld. And we'll be able to demonstrate that with one another shortly. The true focus is controlled just by a back button on the camera system. And this particular true focus button, it has a dual function. It's able to just be your actual autofocus, or if you hold it in, it'll actually lock the focus on your initial plane, and then you can recompose. And it gives you a chirp, a warning to let you know that it's locked true focus. And also in the viewfinder of the camera, you'll be able to see a little clock with a TF inside of it to show that true focus is active. So we'll all practice that together. We talked about the lens kit. Hasselblad has the largest lens kit in medium format photography. And I would dare say that the quality all starts with the glass itself, with the lenses. Traditionally, Hasselblad was known for using the Zeiss lenses, the CF and CFE lenses with the V system. These particular lenses are made by Fujinon, which of course is world renowned for making lenses for high-end video, etc. So we know that they're capable. In fact, the reason why we went to Fujinon, no slight to Zeiss, but at the time that we needed it, they were not able to produce the lenses at the specifications that we had requested. But with that being said, we have the largest lens kit in medium format photography. We have a 24, 28, 35, 50, 80, 100, 120, 150, 210, 300, and we have 2 zoom lenses, a 50 to 110 and a 35 to 90. And as mentioned earlier, we have 3 HCD lenses, the 24, the 28, and the 35 to 90, which are digital only. Okay? And you'll also see that we have a number of different accessories. We have the HTS 1.5. The HTS 1.5 is a tilt and shift adapter that fits between the lens and the camera body that allows you to use your camera as a technical camera. It tilts 10 degrees up or down, it shifts 18 degrees, and rotates 90 degrees. So it adds 6 different movements to your lens kit. And it works fully from 24 millimeter up to 100 millimeter, and with some limitations with the 120. Okay, so we'll get a chance to use this also. One of the great things about this is you only lose about 1 stop with this particular accessory, and the actual data in regards to the degrees that you tilt, shift, or rotate are all stored into the metadata of the files themselves. okay? And you can real time see the adjustments on the top of the LED of the grip of the camera also. So we'll get a chance to play with that. The lenses that I brought with me from the kit, I have the 80, the normal lens, the 100, which is the fastest lens that we have at 2.2, and I also have the 120 macro with me, and I have the new 24 millimeter lens, which has 104 degree radius on it. Okay. A little about the lens quality here. All of the Hasselblad lenses use a central lens shutter, okay? And the camera itself physically can sync all the way up to 1/800th of a second. The fastest shutter speed is 1/800th of a second, and you can sync all the way up to it, and that's a result of central lens shutter. The other great thing is that by the lenses having the shutter in them and using that leaf shutter, they're able to reproduce images with low vibration. Low vibration always means improvement to your focusing. And the image consistency from the axis to the edges. This little abbreviated MTF chart here is basically showing you the axis at the center and to the edges, and the curve is showing how well the lenses are able to keep the contrast from the axis to the edges here. And so the MTF data for the HC and HCD lenses is even an improvement over the Zeiss lenses that were used with the V system many years ago. Okay. And I think I'll add a little something to that. We would think that many of those lenses that went with the V system that could have been made 40, 50 years ago, that, you know, technology has allowed us to improve the design of the optics for lenses. But even more importantly, it's important that the previous lenses were not made to discern 9, 6.8, and 6 micron pixels. And so it would be a little unfair to expect them to perform as the new HC and HCD lenses are performing. With that being said, we do have the ability, and one of the great things about the Hasselblad camera system since its introduction is that it is modular. So let's just say you have a V system, and quite often we have people that have invested $10, $20, sometimes $30,000 in their lens kit for the V system. Well, we do make a CF adapter that fits between the lens and the body that allows you to use all of your glass that you purchased in the past also. We talked about the HTS here. We talked about the movements. And we talked about it fits on all of the H system cameras, and you can use it for both studio and location. And I think that's a good point, because on several of the Hasse excursions, we took this out in the field, and many of the landscape photographers really loved this, because with just a slight tilt of a couple of degrees, they can bring their foreground into focus, midground, and of course, still be focused at infinity with the lens itself. And so it's a great tool for that. I had another gentleman that took photographs of stadiums, high school stadiums. And so what he would do is take the camera system with the widest angle that was available at that time, the 28, and he would set up and square the camera up at the 50-yard line, and he would take a photograph, and then he would just shift it over 15 degrees, and then tilt it 10 degrees, and he would get it all the way down to the end zone on one side, rotate it 90 degrees, and do the same on the left, and stitch these images up without any problems. And of course, with the software, he was able to make adjustments for distortion, etc. Okay. Advanced DAC included. I didn't talk about the DAC, and what that is the digital automatic corrections. And the digital automatic corrections are a database of lookup tables that are associated to our lens kit. We have over 200,000 data files associated to our lens kit. And those data files are to correct flaws with the lenses. And our lenses range from $2,000 all the way up to about $8,000. And so to say that they have flaws, okay, sounds, a little strange, but if we were to make a lens without flaws, only NASA could afford it, okay? But the fact that we have the lookup tables, the digital automatic correction process, which is a matter of just selecting a button inside the software to correct for distortion, vignetting, chromatic aberration, all within the software is the result of that. And so these are the types of things that you're losing when you use third-party products to process your images. And so this is why the Focus software would be a reason for using it in your workflow. This is just showing you the top of the grip on the H5D, showing you the actual degrees of the shift, tilt, and rotation when using the HTS 1.5. We also have a new macro converter. It's the equivalent of a 6.5 extension tube. And of course, the extension tubes are used when you want to do close-up or macro photography. And in this particular case, I don't have the macro converter here today, but in combination with our wide-angle lenses, you can focus a fraction of an inch onto an object. So with the 28, I've been able to get down less than 1/2 of an inch to the object. And this particular converter has its own element, so you lose no stops and there's no magnification with it. And you'll see that it has the data pins at the bottom, so it'll also communicate that to the metadata of the file to let someone know that they did use this when capturing that image. Okay. And that's it for the slideshow.
Whether you're a hobbyist or a professional, B&H has the answers to your questions. Experience a world of technology at our New York City Superstore. Connect with us online or give us a call. Our staff of experts is happy to help.